You know that feeling, right? If you've got a pet, you totally get it. That happy dance when you walk in the door, the quiet purr on your lap. It's this powerful, unspoken connection. But here's the thing. Is it just a feeling? Or are there some real, actual, measurable benefits to sharing our lives with animals? Well, that's what we're here to find out. Let's dive in and see what the science actually says. So, check this out. It turns out we are definitely not the first people to wonder about this. For a long, long time, the whole idea of a human-animal bond wasn't really a thing. It just didn't show up much in books or scientific papers. But then, look at this chart. Something happened right around the late 70s. The phrase just explodes. It's like scientists everywhere suddenly woke up and decided, hey, we need to figure this connection out.
Okay, so where does all this begin? Well, it looks like it starts really, really early. We're going to look at how this bond can actually help build a foundation for emotional health right from the time we're kids.
And this really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, sure, a puppy makes a kid happy today, but can that friendship actually have a lasting effect? Years down the road? Well, a huge study in Japan, and I mean huge, we're talking over 31,000 kids, decided to find out for real.
Okay, but before we get to the juicy results, we got to talk about how they did this because it's pretty clever. You can't just, force some families to get a dog and tell others, nope, no pets for you. That's not how it works. So instead, they used this really smart statistical method. Think of it like this. They found a kid with a pet and then scoured their data for another kid who was their virtual twin in almost every way. Same family income, same parental education, same living situation, everything except for the pet. It's the closest you can get to a perfect, fair comparison.
So, the big reveal. What did they find after all that careful matching? Well, the result was super clear. Kids who had a pet as a toddler were 6% less likely to have issues with emotional expression by the time they hit 5.5. Now, I know what you're thinking. 6%, that doesn't sound like a lot. But think about it across an entire population. A 6% leg up in emotional development, that's a pretty significant head start. It really points to the idea that learning to care for something else helps us learn to care for ourselves and others.
And it's not just about childhood, not by a long shot. As we get older, our pets keep on giving, playing a huge part in our physical health, from how many times we have to see a doctor to just getting us off the couch. This right here is one of the most solid findings out there. We see it in studies from Germany, Australia, the US, all over. On average, if you own a pet, you're making about 0.6 fewer trips to the doctor every single year. And the key thing here is, this isn't just about feeling better, it's about being measurably healthier. Maybe it's the stress relief from petting your cat, maybe it's something else, but whatever it is, it's working.
All right, so not going to the doctor as much, that's kind of a passive benefit, right? But pets also push us to actively get healthier. And let's be honest, nothing does that quite like a dog who needs to be walked right now.
Okay, this chart is just fascinating. You have to look at this. Get this, dog owners who don't walk their dog have an obesity rate of 28%. That's actually higher than people with no pets at all. But look at the people who walk their dogs regularly. Their rate plummets to 17%. It's incredible. It shows that just owning the dog isn't the magic bullet. It's the action it inspires. That leash is more than just a leash. It's literally a lifeline to better health.
So we've talked about general wellness, but now we're going to shift to something much more specific and honestly a lot more profound. We're talking about healing the invisible wounds of war. For so many military veterans dealing with things like PTSD, an animal isn't just a pet. It's a lifeline. And this quote from Dr. Maggie O'Hare, who's a top researcher on this, just says it all. She calls them essential partners, not just pets, partners. Partners in helping veterans readjust and thrive when they come home. And the science, wow, the science backs this up in a massive way. Get this, the very first clinical trial of its kind, funded by the NIH, came back with a stunning result. Veterans who were paired with a service dog had 66% lower odds of a PTSD diagnosis. Let that sink in, 66%. That's not just a small improvement, that is absolutely life-changing. Numbers are one thing, but it's the personal stories that really hit home. This comes from a veteran named Christine, and she's talking about her service dog, Hope. She says Hope wakes her from nightmares, grounds her when she's out in public, and, in her own words, the organization that paired them made my life worth living again. Wow, that right there, that's the real power we're talking about. Okay, So we've seen the amazing impact on individuals, on kids, on adults, on our veterans. But now let's zoom the camera all the way out. Let's look at the big picture. What happens when you add all of these individual benefits up across an entire country? Well, you start to see a massive economic impact. And this is where the numbers just get mind-boggling. So researchers took just two of the things we've talked about, fewer trips to the doctor and lower obesity from walking the dog, and they ran the numbers. Just the doctor visits, just that one thing, saves the U.S. healthcare system over $11 billion a year. Billion. Then you add in the savings from treating less obesity, and well, the total is just staggering. So here's the bottom line. A conservative estimate, and I have to stress that word, conservative, puts the annual savings to the U.S. healthcare system from pet ownership at almost $12 billion. Nearly $12 billion. And just think, that's based on only two factors. The real number is probably way, way higher. It's just incredible.
So let's just wrap this all up. The takeaway is pretty undeniable, right? We're seeing better emotional development in our children. We're seeing improved physical health in adults. We're seeing absolutely life-changing therapeutic support for our veterans. And it all adds up to billions in healthcare savings for the whole country.
Look, the evidence is it's overwhelming. Our pets make our lives better, they make our society better, and not just in ways we can feel, but in ways we can actually measure. But, this whole thing, it's a two-way street, isn't it? So after seeing everything they do for us, from helping a child learn empathy to saving our country billions of dollars, it kind of leaves us with one last really important question to ask ourselves. What does it mean to be a good human for them?